Thank you very much, everyone. It's a bit cold outside, so warmest greetings and welcome again to Aflatun's Global Education and Skills Conference 2023. My name is Mariam Amerifal, and I will be your moderator for this session. I don't know where Karimot is, but she set the bar a little too high for me. But I have an excuse, I'm not part of the youth group anymore. So, so you'll understand that I'll have less energy than her. So in this session, we will have a global perspective on financial literacy and education. We will have two prominent experts that will share with us the insight on the current state of social and financial education. We will allow time at the end of both presentations, so please note your questions. We don't have much time, but you can still write your questions down and we'll see how to share them at the end of the two presentations. So just a brief introduction, I wanted to start by reminding that understanding how society and money work is essential to secure a future in this world. And at Aflatun, we really believe that every single child has the right to build that future. And together, we can drive change where it is most needed, especially among the most vulnerable children and youth in today's society. So we do know that financial literacy has long been proven to be an essential skill for young people to have in the 21st century all over the world. So the concept of thinking ahead and planning is then a life skill that is key to any individual development. So for the sake of time, I'm going to briefly introduce our two specialists, but you will have their full and very rich bios either on your app or on the website, the conference website. So our first speaker, Dr. Andrea Stitcher, is a research director at Stanford University's Graduate School of Business, and she's the Deputy Academic Director at the Global Financial Literacy Excellence Center. Her research focuses on households, financial literacy, and well-being in order to inform policy, to develop and to promote financial literacy programs. So I'm going to ask her to please join me on the stage and share her presentation with us. Thank you.
Just take a minute to think, what financial decisions did you make just this week? Or maybe just this morning? Maybe you were like me and were thinking about getting that Starbucks coffee on the way over here. Well, we have to make big financial decisions, such as when to start and how much to save for retirement. These big decisions clearly impact our financial well-being in the long term. But then there are also these smaller decisions, like this coffee this morning, right? That impact our day-to-day money management and likely at the end of the month, our ability to put money aside for financial shocks. But clearly, this is very complicated, but it's not all. There are also outside factors that affect our financial decision making. For example, there are digital technologies that make financial services and products more accessible, but in some cases also a little bit more complex. Providing access through fintech is a great opportunity. At the same time, we also need to provide information to the users, which according to our research are predominantly young, to help them navigate these new technologies. Also, today's youth in many countries are exposed to financial risk, which range from longer life expectancy to uncertain economic and job prospects. Most recently, the pandemic and the inflation and the ongoing wars have added new risks and new uncertainties that we all have to deal with. To navigate all of that and be able to make sound financial decisions, we have to be prepared. We have to be financially literate. Financial literacy is an essential skill for everyone to have in the 21st century. It is especially so for young people, because we have seen in our research that financial literacy matters. It affects financial decision making, including savings decision, investing, debt management, insuring and managing risk, and retirement planning, all of which will lead to long-term financial well-being. But most importantly, knowledge is the key to empowerment. Financial literacy empowers people to make financial decisions, to plan, to save, to invest. That's why it's so important. But you might now ask, how are we doing on the financial literacy front? I can tell you right away, it doesn't look that good. We at GFLEC, which stands for the Global Financial Literacy Excellence Center, we have developed a handful of questions to measure financial literacy around the world. And we have been collecting data, including the very first Global Financial Literacy Survey. It's actually the largest and most comprehensive global measure of financial literacy. We included 140 countries. We interviewed more than 150,000 adults. Of course, we didn't do that all alone. We partnered with the World Bank and Gallup, and we did that almost 10 years ago in 2014. But it is still the most cited data set in financial literacy. The questions that were asked covered the most universal and fundamental topics at the basis of financial decision making. We wanted to assess the respondents' understanding of numeracy, inflation, interest compounding, and risk diversification. And we classified a respondent as being financially literate if that person was able to answer 3 out of these 4 topics correctly. Now let's turn to the results. I told you already, it looks quite worrisome. Only 1 in 3 adults worldwide are financially literate. Only 1/3 could answer 3 out of these 4 fundamental personal finance topics correctly. The darker shade of the blue, the higher the percentage of financially literate adults in that country. If you look at that map, it seems that when it comes to financial literacy, the world is pretty flat. There are not that many shades, right? So let's turn to the specific questions. Numeracy and inflation are clearly the topics that people know the best. However, on the other hand, risk diversification is what people struggle the most with. It's also known as the concept, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And that's something we have seen in so many other surveys as well. People struggle the most with this concept. And that's going along across all age groups. So even older adults who have been exposed to many more risks along their lifespan struggle with answering that question. So what does that mean for us? Learning by doing doesn't work. We need to educate people and we need to prepare them to make these financial decisions. Now there's also a financial literacy gender gap, and it's actually significant. The blue dots you can see here are the 140 countries in our sample. If a dot is on that straight line, on that black line, that means in that country there are as many financially literate men as women. If the blue dot is on the upper half to the left of the line, that means in that country there are more financially literate women than men. And similarly, you can already imagine if the dot is on the lower half to the right, in that country there are more financially literate men compared to women. So if you look at this pattern already shows you around the world, men are more likely to understand our financial literacy questions. But there is a very interesting finding that occurs when we analyze women's financial literacy. Women are much more likely to answer with "I don't know" to our financial literacy questions. So it seems it's actually a lack of confidence rather than a lack of knowledge that drives women's financial literacy scores. So what that means for our program is we may need to tailor our financial education programs and tools in a different way for women. Now let's turn to the young. The most rigorous and comprehensive assessment of students around the globe, of 15-year-old students, is the Program for International Student Assessment, or also in short called PISA. And it's conducted by the OECD. Every 3 years, kids have to take a test in reading, math, and science. That's mandatory. In the most recent data available, which is from 2018, countries also had the option to decide whether they want to participate in a financial literacy assessment. And 20 countries did so. In those 20 participating countries, 117,000 students did the financial literacy assessment. They represent 13.5 million 15-year-old students. Let's turn to the results. You can see here at the very top are a handful of countries in which the students performed the best. They have a strong performance in financial literacy and score above the OECD average. Those countries are Estonia, Finland, Canada, Poland, and Australia. The yellow marked countries are those with an average performance. But the bulk of the countries are actually in the red part. That means the students in those countries perform significantly below the OECD average. There are many factors that affect financial literacy scores, that affect the differences here. But I'd like to mention two important factors here. One is the influence of parents. Students who talk with their parents about money matters score significantly higher compared to students who do not. That's very important for us to know for our programs, because including parents is actually going to be effective. Second, financial skills and financial literacy is highly correlated with the socioeconomic background of the students. So advantaged students score significantly higher than disadvantaged students. So this means there are vulnerable groups we have to pay attention to. So let's summarize. What does the data tell us? Financial literacy is very low around the globe, for both adults and the young. Risk is what people know the least. And third, financial literacy is unequally distributed. There are vulnerable groups we have to pay attention to. So now the question is, how do we change these statistics? We change these statistics by investing in financial education, by putting in financial education into schools. And in communities where formal education isn't accessible to everyone, we need to provide it where the young people are. Important features of financial education are, it should be rigorous. A short half-hour course or a pamphlet isn't that effective. We need to invest time to teach these fundamentals of personal finance. And it should be holistic. We need to include a variety of topics, especially so risk-related content. Also, we have to reach as many students as possible. Ideally, everybody, of course. And third, it should be cost-effective so that we can actually implement it widely. So with all these features, with all the data we have seen, let's put our heads together and make a case for making financial education mandatory. But now you might think, wait a minute, does financial education actually work? She hasn't talked about that at all. I can tell you, financial education works, and I have proof. So what did we do? In 2021, GFLEC partnered with researchers from Germany, and we conducted the very first meta-analysis of financial education programs. What does that all mean? We took 76 already existing studies that evaluated financial education programs and took the findings of those most rigorous studies and analyzed them together to see whether financial education works or not. Those 76 studies span over 33 countries, 6 continents, and across all these programs that were evaluated, more than 160,000 people participated. If you look at the map here, you can see the sample included a wide variety of low, medium, and high income countries. So what are the findings? Financial education affects not only knowledge, but also behavior. So it actually works. And it even affects financial decision making of the students, or of everybody. It works across age groups, but it is particularly impactful for the youth. Third, it works in low and high income countries. Fourth, the effects of financial education are actually similar to the effects in other education domains, such as math, reading, health, and energy conservation. And last but not least, there is no clear evidence of a dramatic decay of the effects of financial education over time. So the effects actually persisted up to 2 years after the intervention. So up to 2 years the program took place. So with all that in mind, the question is, where do we start? There are guidelines to develop effective financial education programs for students. Actually, just a month ago, at the end of September, the European Commission and the OECD launched together the Financial Competence Framework for Children and Youth. This is a major milestone. This is a major step forward and an excellent document to reference to. Then there are also success stories. It's not an impossible mission. Actually, in Portugal made financial education mandatory in school in 2018. And Italy is passing a similar law right now. And last but not least, we all have a role to play. We all have to work together to make financial education mandatory, to build a financially literate world. Whether you're an educator, a policymaker, a curriculum developer, a program provider, a student, a parent, we all have to work together to make this work. That's why I'm so excited to be here with all of you, because this conference is the perfect place to start and develop this. So let me conclude with this. Everyone deals with finance and financial decisions, large and small. Yet, finance is so complex that we cannot leave it to individuals to learn on their own. We have to invest in financial education. Because I cannot stress it enough, financial literacy is like reading and writing. It is an essential skill for the 21st century. It is an essential skill to thrive in today's society. So let's make a financially literate world our vision for the future. And let's plan this future together. Thank you so much.
Some of the numbers are a bit scary, I have to say. The one I remember most is that only 1 in 3 adults worldwide are financially literate. So if the adults themselves are illiterate, what is it going to be for the youth? So we really need to do something together about this. I also noted that the gender gap is still a sad reality around the world, and the influence of parents and the family's socio-economic background is a major, major factor. I don't want to repeat her presentation, but I really want to stress that we do need financial education to be mandatory in schools. Because like she said, knowledge is the key to empowerment. And what she said is that it helps not just with knowledge, but also with behavior. And I think I'm a living proof. I think I'm not the same person I was before I knew about Aflatun International. And I really wish I knew what I know now 15 years ago. Maybe I would be rich by now. So on that note, I want to thank again Dr. Sicha and invite Mrs. Davis on the stage. So Mrs. Davis, our second and last speaker, is the regional lead on young people's skills and employability for UNICEF in Eastern and Southern Africa. She's based in Nairobi, Kenya, and provides strategic direction and technical assistance to country teams and partners across the region on innovative, alternative, and blended learning to earning opportunities and programming. Welcome. We're very happy and honored to have you both with us this morning.
Thank you. And good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and especially a pleasure to be able to see you from beyond a computer screen after what we've seen over the last few years. So, I am Nairobi-based, as mentioned, and I work on a range of different skilling opportunities for young people with UNICEF. But I will focus primarily on youth, and I will focus primarily on transferable skills for young people. So overall, we'll be looking at just a big picture of what is the state of the world when we look at skills, and a lot of people have already addressed this, colleagues have addressed this over the course of the morning. How we are tackling some of these issues, really positioning some of these issues, some of the findings we're seeing, and also what this looks like on the ground as well in some of our programming, so the way in which we're positioning and structuring this. So when we look at the state of skills in the world and this sort of big picture on this, I'm going to provide a few stats. So most young people are not equipped with the skills required for life and work in the 21st century. So we know with the growing technologies, the conflict situations, high migration, and a plethora of different issues that young people are facing, we know that they are not being equipped with the sort of full potential for the skills they need to really be able to navigate this world and their futures. So we know 837 million youth are without secondary education level skills, and we know 813 million youth are without digital skills. This is coming from our digital skill, or our world skills clock at UNICEF. Here we see that young people's potential is really untapped by not having the really sort of critical skills. And I'll get into what those actual skills are as we move forward. 500 million young people are either unemployed, underemployed, or working in insecure jobs that we're aware of. And girls and young women are especially affected by this, and this has come out in the financial literacy component and also in what we've heard through our panelists earlier this morning. So female youth are 3 times less likely to be in the workplace, in some form of education or in training. So with some of these statistics and what we know already, how are we actually looking at this area? So here we go. We see this as a really lifelong sort of learning opportunity for young people, and this starts at a really early age in pre-education. And this looks at really being ready to learn for this lifelong learning. So this is being prepared for school. What we do know already is what the statistics are showing us is 2/3 of 10-year-olds are unable to read and understand a simple text. So this is quite startling. And we know that once we invest in sort of that really pre-primary age group with basic skills, whether it be social emotional learning and with the foundational skills required, we know that this has really strong implications for the future of an adolescent or a young person's journey through life. Also looking at sort of really learning the basics and the foundational learning, and then also really the prepared for work that I'll really be getting into in some of this conversation. We see the importance in a wide range of skills. So we've addressed the financial literacy skills, which we've started to really embed in a lot of our transferable skilling work. Here we'll see foundational skilling. This is really the basic literacy and numeracy that is required for the employment world. It's required for long-term schooling, education, and required for successes in school life and work for young people. We're also seeing increasingly the green skills agenda, and we spoke earlier about the climate situation and the importance of this. So this is really growing as we look at climate education and we look at opportunities for young people in the green economy. And then another area that's growing for us and that's also being addressed is really around digital skilling and the importance of digital literacy. We saw a proliferation of digital opportunities for young people, particularly during the pandemic. And so this is of real importance, making sure that all young people are included in this. We know right now a huge digital divide, and especially a digital gender divide, so really working on those skills. Entrepreneurial and job-specific skills as well, so this, again, can be taught in different institutions, in different centers, training centers. And then finally, getting to where we really want to hone into today is the transferable skills. And this is alternately known as 21st century skills. It can be life skills, transferable skills, foundational skills for different organizers as well. And this is where we're looking at communication, problem solving, decision making. And the transferable skills are really what we are calling the magic glue. And the magic glue as the skills that really connect, they reinforce other skills, and they enable young people or children to be able to learn other different skills as well. So within UNICEF, we've worked on a global skills framework. It's a global good that's available to policymakers, to various stakeholders, and it's been tested and rolled out in several countries in the Middle East and North Africa, so many of you coming from those areas may be familiar with this. We've worked on this very closely with Aflatoon, with different ministries as well, and it looks at 12 core skills that are required. These have been really sort of evaluated, tested, that we see as really strong, important transferable skills for children and young people. And these have very strong components to 4 different sort of outcome areas. So when we look at active citizenship, we look at learning, opportunities for employability, and personal empowerment. So this is a wheel that's been appropriated from different, in different contexts, working with different ministries that then can adapt the different skills opportunities to the context that makes most sense for them. We're also working on really testing and measuring what these skills look like and how they can be assessed in the classroom or outside the classroom. So the way in which we're positioning those transferable skills and that wheel that I'd spoken about is really being able to meet young people where they're at, or meet children where they're at in their life circumstances. So we've mentioned a range of different experiences that young people are enduring, so whether it be conflict, migration, being a young mother, married at an early age. These are all sort of experiences that we see in a lot of what young people are experiencing in life in a lot of our programming. So what we're proposing is really a multiple pathway approach, and this can be done sort of across the life course, as mentioned, in both formal, non-formal, and community settings. And it can be done offline, online, and in hybrid approaches. And this here, we're able to really create a much more inclusive and equitable agenda as well. So this is a little bit of a snapshot of what this sort of programming looks like across many countries, particularly in the Eastern and Southern Africa area where I'm working. We look at ensuring in the school setting or in accelerated learning programs that there is that foundational skill I mentioned. And then that glue, that transferable skills component that can be taught in schools and out of schools, in youth clubs, in community settings, and also really pairing these skills together. So ensuring those foundational skills are there, those literacy and numeracy, and then moving to the transferable. We then see opportunities to link those transferable skills with other types of programming taking place, whether it be entrepreneurial skilling, financial literacy, and innovative work, moving into potentially a more entrepreneurial sort of career path. And then also, as was mentioned earlier today, opportunities within work-based learning. So this is with internships, apprenticeships, and what we are seeing and hearing from a lot of industry and private sector partners is that these transferable skills are not necessarily able to be learned on the job. This is something that is required in their sort of learning opportunities. They're very difficult, unlike some of the vocational training, to be taught in the job, in the marketplace. So ensuring sort of three sort of facets that we've really seen to help us in scaling a lot of this work and ensuring sort of more effectiveness. And that is really looking and taking sort of a careful look at the curricula and aligning the sort of transferable skills opportunities with the curricula and the current state of a curricula in a specific context. So making sure that they're appropriate, sort of age-appropriate pedagogy and practices, and that there's continuous assessment. And the secondary is just really ensuring a very sort of protective learning and safe learning environment for young people or children around this work. And this is that they are protected physically, socially, and emotionally. And what we've seen as working very well in this is a lot of peer-to-peer support that has been an effective practice. And then finally, and where we're really focusing a lot of attention is around the systems change. And this is really looking at a lot of the upstream work we do around education and learning within systems. So this is ensuring that a lot of the skills are being embedded in the policies, the plans, and the budget allocations. So I'll just show you a couple of examples of how this is being rolled out across the globe from the global perspective. And tomorrow we'll have an opportunity to really look at how this is being featured in Eastern and Southern Africa a little bit more clearly. So here within Egypt, so are there people within the education system from Egypt? If you could raise your hands. Great. Excellent. Okay, so you may be familiar with this, recognize the education reform that took place in 2017. And this was an opportunity for UNICEF and ministerial partners to come together with Aflatoon and really look at mainstreaming life skills into the curricula. And this was an opportunity in Egypt to really sort of transform education to focus on learning, thinking, and innovating for children and young people. There was a strong focus on equity and inclusion, particularly with young people or children with disabilities. And it moved from focusing on knowledge-based to life skills, and that sort of skills-based approach, from surface learning to deep learning, traditional learning to very much project-based learning that we know works well, paper-based to both digital and paper-based, and from examination into sort of regular, rigorous assessments. And here I'll just bring you over to Uganda. How many of you are coming from the education system in Uganda? Okay, excellent. So you may also be familiar with this. This is the life skills work that is being done with the Ministry of Education and Sports, with UNICEF and also Aflatoon again. And this is an opportunity to really focus on social and emotional learning that has a focus on ages 10 to 20-year-olds. This is being rolled out in primary education settings where there are a lot of overage adolescents, and then moved into secondary age schools. And the beauty of this sort of toolkit and material that has been developed for a co-curricular setting is that it can be done in school clubs after school hours, or it can be done out of the school setting. And so this we've seen rolled out in a lot of our work that we've done that's been supported by the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs in settlements. So we've rolled this out in 700 schools as of last year. And the intention is to really move this into more of sort of a national, sort of institutionalized opportunity. This has a focus on that social emotional learning, but has modules that include financial literacy and also includes SRHR, so different facets that have also been mentioned as important as well in earlier conversations today. And that's a bit of a snapshot of positioning and where we're at with a lot of the work around transferable skills. Thank you.